table cases for the proposition.
Thank you very much, and thank you to UCL Debating Society for organising this important and topical debate. This country faces a threat from terrorism perpetrated in the name of Islam. The threat is serious in its nature and implications, and global in its scale. So universities are neither immune nor isolated from this threat, and we know that violent extremists do seek to recruit and organise on British campuses. But while the challenge to campuses is serious, in spite of what some would have us believe, it is not widespread. In recent weeks, University College London has been a victim of self-serving, publicity-seeking statements by a range of talking heads and thoughtless think tanks that have allowed UCL's name to be dragged through the mud. If we needed any evidence whatsoever that this agenda is being perpetrated on the basis of ideology rather than evidence, we should look at the substance and the timing of some of the people who have been so active in making claims about this particular individual and the circumstances surrounding his radicalisation. Within days of the attempted alleged attack on Christmas, that's alleged, he's not convicted yet, on Christmas Day, Professor Anthony Glees, who's Professor of Security and Intelligence Studies at the University of Birkbeck, confidently told the Daily Telegraph, "I believe Abdul Muttalab's radicalisation from being a devoted Muslim to a suicide bomber took place in the UK, and I believe Al-Qaeda recruited him in London." At that time, he clearly knew something the intelligence services didn't. Douglas Murray, who will be speaking here this evening, told the Wall Street Journal, during his time at University College London, Abdul Muttalab was in the most conducive environment, this is an astonishing claim, the most conducive environment an Islamic extremist could inhabit outside Waziristan. For those of you who aren't up in your Pakistani geography, it's one of those areas in which Al-Qaeda and elements who support it are most active, or engaged in radical training camps. I don't know if you recognise University College London by that description. And I believe that such hyperbole is not becoming of academics or think tanks. In fact, in the case of Anthony Glees, he's that worst kind of academic, more interested in generating headlines and appearances on News 24 than in producing intelligence-led, intelligence-based contributions that inform this important public debate. And in the case of Douglas Murray, who I'll come on to talk about shortly and has the opportunity to respond in his 7 minutes, I believe he has a hidden agenda which is becoming more apparent by the day. And yes, I'll take your intervention.
Okay. Irrespective of all of that, what the speaker before you said was that UCL was negligent by inviting these speakers with no speaker in opposition to them.
Okay, I'll come back on that. Thanks very much. I'll take your point. James, I'm sorry to cut off, but the time is short. James Brandon is a former member of staff at the Centre for inappropriately named Centre for Social Cohesion. Left to join Quilliam, who was quoted as saying around the time, "My time there was a constant to de-radicalise Murray, and to ensure that the centre's output targeted only Islamists and not Muslims as a whole. This I finally had enough of this constant battle and resigned." But let's judge Murray in his own words, shall we?
Point of order. What's this got to do with the motion?
Well, it's very pertinent to the motion because it's pertinent to the circumstances. Well, I'll come to explain. So, in February 2006, in the Pimford Time Memorial Conference in Hague, Murray posed the question: why is it that time and time again the liberal West is crumbling before the violence, intimidation and thuggery of Islam? He also said, "It is late in the day, but Europe still has time to turn around the demographic time bomb, which will soon see large numbers of our cities fall to Muslim majorities. It has to. All immigration into Europe from Muslim countries must stop." He's also reported as saying conditions for Muslim in Europe must be made harder across the board. Europe must look like an attractive proposition. And it's entirely relevant because so much of this debate is being centred around the idea that Murray and the CSC are somehow evidence-based, intelligence-led, research-less, impartial academics providing controversial. I'm not taking in one intervention, I've only got 7 minutes. And in doing so, he's committing that worst of all crimes, which is tarring all Muslims with the same brush. Because we know that the views of, in one intervention, radical, violent, I don't racially profile people I pick from the floor.
You just did.
So
ladies and gentlemen, you will get a chance to make more than Amy will come back to that, but please allow speaker to speak and respect the rules of the debate. This is a debate.
Because I hope we can all agree in the proposition and opposition that the majority of Muslims in Britain do not share the views of violent extremists. And that's why I think it's so unfortunate such inflammatory language is used to tar all Muslims with the same brush. And doubtless this evening we'll be reading off a list of speakers, some of whom we'll heard of, some of us we won't. And before I'm painted as someone who's against, or somehow against people criticising hate speakers on campus, I absolutely hate speech. In fact, I recall a certain occasion on a US conference floor when I was speaking in favour of when people sat with camera phones taking photos to try and intimidate me. So not let it be said on Daily Telegraph blogs an hour before the debate that somehow I'm opposed to taking on these people. And that's precisely why I'm not taking one intervention. That's precisely. Oh, wait. Thanks, Nick Cohen, for your continued interventions. NUS is working on guidelines that deal with hate speech, but we need to be clear about where we draw the line. And is the line really being drawn, having no offensive speakers on campus? Because if so, how we can define it? I might take being called a coward offensive. Do we chuck Nick Cohen out? Of course we do. And obviously this is a topical time for dodgy dossiers once again hitting the headlines, and it's a dodgy dossier from the Centre for Social Cohesion I have with me this evening, because one of the examples of hate speakers on campus is Uthman Latif, who said, "We don't accept homosexuality, we hate it because Allah hates it." Well, that may be controversial and unacceptable, but people have a right to say it on campus, and people like me and other LGBT activists should take them on, not try and push them somewhere else. In fact, I heard Stephen Green saying something far worse on the Autism question. I'm running out of time, so I'll start to kind of draw through. I've got other examples where people have been cited as being unacceptable speakers on campus, and that's the problem. We must defend Islamic societies. They're constantly being tarred again with the same brush as hotbeds of Islamic extremism. In fact, the War on Terror Week organised at UCL was given examples, and aside from the inclusion of George Galloway on the speakers list, I thought it looked like quite a good set of events at a particularly topical time. So, coming back to what I said earlier, we do need to defend academic freedom and freedom of speech on campus. Of course there's no complacency. Of course universities have a responsibility. Of course student unions and Islamic societies have a responsibility as well. But we should never forget that in this war against terror, if you want to put it in George W. Bush's terms, we're in danger of sacrificing the very liberty that we are trying to defend. And where does this all end? We've got echoes of the anti-Semitic hard left in the 1980s, with police saying all British universities must now look at their Islamic societies and demand assurances that radicalisation will not be around and potentially disband them. And we've got people saying that Abdul Muttalib should never have been put of his ISOP because he was an international student. So, in conclusion, I'll be sensible now and wind up. In conclusion, there's no doubt about the serious nature of the threat, but we do have a responsibility to speak sensibly. Those who overstate it are reckless and irresponsible and don't allow UCL to negatively tax.
And before, sorry,